What if I told you that Samsung is quietly working on something that could genuinely change how we think about flagship phones? Not just a faster chip or a slightly better camera. We're talking about a display that could be brighter without draining your battery faster, a processor that might finally give Qualcomm some real competition, and a camera sensor with technology that has never been seen before in a smartphone. The Galaxy S27 series is still a long way from launching, but the information coming out right now is already turning heads. And today, we're going to break all of it down for you. From the new OLED panel technology, to the Exynos 2700 chip, to the brand new 200-megapixel camera sensor Samsung just officially announced. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get into it. Let's start with the display, because this might be the most exciting change coming to the Galaxy S27 Ultra. Samsung is reportedly considering a new OLED panel built on something called the M16 material kit. Now, what does that actually mean for you as a user? In simple terms, M16 is expected to allow better light transmission through the display. Better light transmission means the screen can produce higher brightness levels. And here's the really interesting part. It can do that without needing significantly more power to get there. So you could end up with a screen that looks incredible in direct sunlight, while your battery doesn't take a huge hit because of it. That's a trade-off Samsung has struggled to balance for years. On top of that, there's talk of something called a variant E7 panel. This version is said to allow around 30% of light to pass through it. That number might not sound like much on its own, but in display technology terms, that's a meaningful step forward. Think about how often you've pulled out your phone on a sunny day and squinted at the screen. Or noticed that your battery drains faster when you're outside with brightness turned all the way up. A more efficient panel addresses both of those problems at the same time. Better readability in bright conditions, and longer battery life because the screen isn't working as hard to produce that brightness. Now let's talk about the chip, because Samsung has some very ambitious plans here. The Galaxy S27 and S27 Plus are reportedly going to be powered by the Exynos 2700. This chip is said to be built on Samsung's second-generation 2nm production technology. The most powerful core in this chip is expected to hit somewhere between 4.0 and 4.2 GHz. That is a significant number. For reference, getting a mobile chip to consistently perform at that clock speed while staying thermally stable is genuinely difficult. There are also claims about an IPC figure of 0.97 and a potential single-core score of around 2,520 points in Geekbench 6. Now, benchmarks don't tell the whole story of real-world performance, but a score like that would put the Exynos 2700 in very serious territory. It would suggest that Samsung is no longer just making a chip to check a box. This could be a chip that actually competes with what Qualcomm is putting out at the same time. For users in markets where Samsung ships Exynos instead of Snapdragon, this is a big deal. Those users have sometimes felt like they were getting a slightly lesser version of the same phone. If these numbers hold up, that gap could close in a real and noticeable way. Let's move on to the lineup itself, because there's a change coming there too. Samsung is reportedly planning to expand the Galaxy S27 series to 4 models. That would include a standard S27, an S27 Plus, an S27 Ultra, and potentially a Pro variant. That's a broader lineup than what Samsung has been doing recently. The memory side of things might stay closer to what we already have. The timing of the launch is also worth watching. There are reports that Apple might push the iPhone 18 launch into the first quarter of 2027. If that happens, Samsung could find itself in an interesting position where it needs to rethink exactly when it launches the Galaxy S27. Competition timing matters, and Samsung will be watching Apple's moves closely. Now let's talk about the camera, because Samsung just made an official announcement that's directly relevant here. Samsung has officially unveiled a new 200-megapixel sensor called the ISOCELL HPC, and the technology packed into the sensor is genuinely new. The standout feature is called Deep Pix. Samsung describes it as something that has not been done before in the industry. Here's a simple way to understand what it does. When light hits a camera sensor, each tiny pixel converts that light into an electrical signal. But there's a limit to how much light each pixel can handle before it overflows. When it overflows, you get blown-out highlights and lost detail in bright areas of a photo. Samsung has been working on solutions to this for a while. They introduced something called floating diffusion, which is essentially like adding a second container next to each pixel to hold the extra signal. Then they introduced FDTI, which works like building taller walls around each pixel to keep signals separated. DeepPix takes this further with something called dual vertical transfer gates. These provide better control over the electrical charges inside each pixel, and reduce signal leakage between pixels. The result is that the sensor can handle much more light without losing detail, without needing larger pixels, and without making the camera module physically bigger. Samsung says deep pics can increase each pixel's light handling capacity by up to 60%. That's not a small improvement. That means cleaner photos, better dynamic range, more detail in both bright and dark areas of the same image. The ISOCELL HPC also brings something useful for zoom photography. It supports single-frame HDR at multiple zoom levels: 1x, 1.5x, 2x, 3x, and 4x. This matters because smartphones often have to crop into the main sensor image to produce zoom levels that don't match any of the physical lenses. When you crop like that, you're working with less image data. Having HDR processing available even at those in-between zoom levels helps maintain image quality across the board. This is especially relevant for the Galaxy S27 Ultra because leaks suggest it might drop the 3x telephoto camera and keep only the 5x periscope telephoto. That would create a bigger gap between the main camera and the telephoto. So having better processing at intermediate zoom levels becomes much more important. The ISOCELL HPC can also shoot at 7.5 frames per second at the full 200 megapixel resolution, 30 frames per second at 50 megapixels, and up to 180 frames per second at 12.5 megapixels. That's not just about resolution, that's about speed and versatility. On the rest of the specs front, here's what's being reported for the Galaxy S27 Ultra. It's expected to come with a 5,500 mAh battery. Wired charging is expected to stay at 60 watts, and wireless charging at 25 watts through Qi 20.2 compatible chargers. The phone will likely run Android 17 with One UI 9 out of the box. Samsung's current software update policy covers 7 years of Android and security updates, and that's expected to continue. There's also talk of expanded Galaxy AI features, with both on-device and cloud-based AI capabilities. Connectivity will likely include Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 6.0, UWB, NFC, 5G with sub-6 GHz and milliwave support, and a USB-C port with transfer speeds up to 5 gigabits per second. Pricing is expected to start at around $1,300 for the base storage version, with the 1TB model potentially going above $1,800. The launch window is currently pointing to January or February 2027. So that's everything we know about the Galaxy S27 series right now. A more efficient and brighter display, a chip that could finally put Exynos back in the conversation, a brand new camera sensor with genuinely new technology, and a broader lineup of 4 models. There's still a long road between now and early 2027. A lot of this information will change, get confirmed, or get replaced with something completely different. But right now, the early picture is looking more interesting than many people expected. If you found this breakdown helpful, go ahead and hit the like button. It genuinely helps more people find this video. Drop a comment below and let me know which of these features you're most excited about. Is it the display, the chip, the new camera sensor? Let's talk about it. And if you want to stay up to date on everything Galaxy S27 as more leaks come in, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.